It's time for On Target Radio, Chicagoland's only radio show dedicated to educating, entertaining, and discussion of firearms, legislation, and your Second Amendment rights. Presented in part by the Illinois State Rifle Association, Illinois Gun Works, Safer USA, and Chuck's Gun Shop. Here's your host, firearm instructor, educator, and enthusiastic Second Amendment proponent, David Lombardo.
And welcome to On Target Radio, Chicago's voice for the Second Amendment. I'm David Lombardo, and sitting across from the desk, while partly standing across, is my able-bodied co-host, Tim Dalan. Say hi, Tim.
What's going on?
I have no idea. You were standing up, fiddling around with a camera.
I know, well...
Radio's not good enough for you. You have to be on camera.
There's no trigger on it, so I couldn't figure out how to do it.
What am I going to tell you? We're here every Sunday from 9 to 10 p.m. talking about shooting sports, personal protection, hunting, and all things Second Amendment. And you, the listener, have an opportunity to call in and talk to our guests. And speaking of guests, Tim, for the eighth week in a row, we would like to invite Chicago's Mayor Rahm Emanuel to come in and discuss his views on gun control. Now, as I always say, we respect his right to have his opinion.
Yes, you do say that.
We just like to chat a little bit.
I would like to hear him, too.
Just to be fair.
I'm sure he has something very pithy to say.
I don't doubt it at all.
I just learned that word.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm
not sure what it means yet, but
pre-show.
pithy sounds cool. Yeah, right. All right.
As you know, I like to stir up the silt at the bottom of the knowledge pool. And we're going to do a little stirring this evening.
I'm all for that.
I'm for that, too. This week's Political Hack of the Week award goes to Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle, who apparently majored in liberal hack agenda instead of economics at the University of Chicago.
Well, the degree, I'm sure, was paid for then.
Probably.
Yes.
Yeah. Some sort of a program.
Not exactly. Right.
Yeah, exactly. She had proposed a $25 gun tax and a 5-cent per bullet tax. And the theory was the $25 gun tax will produce $600,000 in revenue, and the 5-cent bullet tax was going to produce $400,000.
And that's supposed to offset the $6 million worth of business they'll drive out of the county. How?
And there we get back to the economics wasn't the major, okay? Now, interestingly enough, giving credit where credit is due, Democratic commissioners, John Fritchie and Edwin Reyes, took her to the woodshed. They had a little discussion with Ms. Presswood.
But they got paid in the end, I understand.
Well, what happened was they talked her out of the bullet tax. And but the $25 per gun tax stuck, and so that is in there. Now, here's an interesting thing that she is quoted, and this is a quote. She said about the bullet tax, as it was proposed, the taxes on some boxes of bullets would have been greater than the cost of the bullets themselves.
Now, didn't you and I talk about that almost immediately after we heard that?
Yeah.
And wouldn't you think that the Cook County Board of Commissioners would have somebody that did some type of research before they just opened their mouth?
Can you
say
their
very large mouths?
They don't care?
Well, other than that.
Other than, now the vote, as I recollect, was it 9-8?
9-7.
9-7. Right. So, yeah. So, I mean, there are clearly some of the commissioners felt strongly about it. Now, here's the payoff. The real payoff is the money is going to go into a $2 million fund that she is setting up. The wording, I believe, was to give money to groups that have demonstrated ability to lower crime and violence in the city of Chicago, which translates into conservative talk as anti-Second Amendment groups.
Right.
Which is kind of cool when you think about it. Every time you buy a gun, you're contributing to, like, handgun control.
So their estimate is they're going to take in $600,000 in additional tax money, but they're spending $2 million, of which they're already $231 million in the hole for the year. So where's this other money coming from?
And now you understand why Cook County is, if not the highest taxed county in the country, certainly one of them. What worries me is some of our sponsors, and even people who aren't our sponsors, but Illinois Gun Works and Chuck's Gun Shop and Pelcher's and all of them, they're all in Cook County.
Oh, right.
And I, quite honestly, I am concerned about that, as I am for the other gun stores in Cook County. And as a result, as you know, tonight's topic is Cook County gun tax. And we will take our listeners' questions and comments at 312-642-5600. That's 312-462-5600. Or go to Facebook, like Facebook. Our page, On Target Radio, and ask a question there. What did I say? 642-312-642-5600. 5600.
It was quite interesting getting here to the. Every time there was an exit, we were getting off on the exit.
It's been a long day. It's been. You know what it was? I was teaching this bevy of beautiful women today to shoot, and I have just been messed up ever since.
I saw that.
Yeah. Anyway, our guests, which we're halfway through the segment, and we haven't gotten to our guests. We have Don Moran, Walter Maksym, and Ed Ronkowski. Attorney Ed Ronkowski, a good friend. Actually, everybody here is a good friend. Was assistant state's attorney for Will County from 1978 to 1982, and an assistant state's attorney for Cook County from 82 to 2003. He was chosen by the Illinois State Rifle Association to argue a Second Amendment case before the Illinois Supreme Court last January, for which the ISRA won a unanimous decision in their favor last April. And Ed is an NRA-certified instructor. Attorney Walter Maksym, another good friend. Walter's an attorney and admitted to the bar in Illinois, Florida, California, the United States Supreme Court, numerous federal courts, and the federal bar. He holds a Master of Communication degree and several law degrees. Walter has practiced and taught law over the last 4 decades and was elected and served as chairman of the Attorney Registration and Disciplinary Commission Inquiry Board panel by co-members with respect to the Operation Greylord judicial corruption investigation. He specializes in federal and state constitutional law and has represented gun rights organizations such as Concealed Carry, I-Carry, federally licensed firearm dealers, law-abiding gun owners, and law enforcement agencies and officers relating to the Second Amendment issues. And then, last but certainly not least, another good friend, Don Moran, president of the Illinois State Rifle Association. Don is not an attorney. He's one of the few that we have that's not an attorney. He started shooting competitively in high school, which shows you how old Don is. Back in those days on the rifle team, and picked up action pistol shooting while serving in the Air Force. Don began shooting high-power rifle competition in the late 1980s, eventually winning numerous state and regional championships and national team championships. He holds a Distinguished Rifleman's Badge, High Master classification, and shot in the Wimbledon 1,000-yard shoot-off at Camp Perry. Gentlemen, welcome all.
Hi, David, Tim.
Thanks for having us.
You were probably thinking I was never going to get around to you, weren't you? We do our little setup. So we're talking principally about the Chicago County gun tax, and we've got callers on already. And let's take the first one. We will take the first one because it's a good question. This is Wayne from Streamwood. Wayne, are you there?
Yeah, Dave, it's Wayne from the Blackhawk Club. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. How are you doing?
Okay. Again, how did that vote go? You said 9-7, but it went against us?
How did the vote go? Anybody? Go ahead, Don. Jump in.
Yeah, it was 9-7 against us.
9-7 against us. So 7 of the commissioners were on our side, and 9 weren't for whatever reason.
Okay.
Okay?
Out here where I live, Cabela's, which is a pretty good-sized retailer, which provides quite a bit of sales tax to the county, they were passing out flyers as everybody bought something in the last couple of weeks, urging people to call their commissioners, and they gave a list of numbers, et cetera. But they're saying they will wind up closing up because their firearm sales is a big part of their retail.
Absolutely. And that's going to be a serious problem. All right, Wayne, thanks for calling in.
Thanks, Dave.
We got a real interesting one here. We got Rob from Chicago. Rob supports the gun tax. Is that right, Rob?
That is correct.
Fire away, Rob. Well, maybe that's a bad metaphor in this case.
No, actually, I support gun rights. I don't really, I was born in Chicago. I grew up in Chicago. I don't really care that much about guns, and I know that it's way, 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 way too late to get any of them off the street. So I recognize that, governmental efforts to do this are, not going to be successful in terms of reducing violence. But at the same time, let's not forget that the point of this is about the freedom to carry a weapon in a crowded city. And, the city is the point.
Rob, that's not what the point is. The point here was not about concealed firearms. The point is taxing the sale of a firearm for whatever, even a recreational firearm.
No, I heard that. I didn't say anything about concealing. I'm talking about that what the government is attempting to do, what the county government is attempting to do, is to discourage the purchase and the carry of firearms in Chicago generally.
True.
And I'm perfectly fine with that. And the reason I'm perfectly fine with that is because if someone really, really wants to own a gun, my suggestion is leave. my suggestion is move, okay? The point of the law is to keep guns as much as possible off the streets of the city. If you don't like it, don't come to the city.
Okay, Rob, we're out of time for this segment, so I appreciate the call, and we'll pick up here in a minute on that subject. But thanks again, Rob. Appreciate the call.
Good. Thank you.
All righty. Gentlemen, we got 30 seconds. Somebody want to jump in really quick?
Yeah, the law is not going to affect the bad guys who carry the guns.
Exactly.
They get their guns otherwise. This law will only affect the honest citizen who's trying to buy a gun.
And not only that, David, but I'd have a little problem with people deciding where I can and where I cannot exercise my constitutional rights. I can't own a firearm in a city or I have to pay a tax to own a firearm in a city to defend myself.
Right. And we're going to continue this topic when we come back after these messages. You're listening to On Target Radio.
Attention firearm owners or those considering exercising your Second Amendment rights. I want to tell you about Illinois Gun Works. From void services and new firearm purchases to gunsmith services and an indoor shooting range, Don and his staff will assist you without attitude or pressure. Need training? Illinois Gun Works' popular Illinois Responsible Firearm Owners class teaches you the regulations to legally defend yourself, own, and transport your firearm. There's a required class for a Chicago firearm permit and popular new shooter familiarization class, including one for women. Now, I took this class and urge you to reserve your spot fast for this fun class. Illinois Gun Works offers a wide selection of training and certification classes, from security work to those just considering ownership, even special group classes. Illinois Gun Works, Chicagoland's full-service firearm headquarters, is located on Grand Avenue, just a block west of Harlem in Elmwood Park. Call 708-452-0040 or visit IllinoisGunWorks.com. That's 708-452-0040.
You're listening to On Target Radio on AM 560 WIND with David Lombardo. Here's David with more interesting conversation on firearms, safety, your Second Amendment rights, and much more. To participate, call the studio at 312-642-5600.
We have a question on Facebook from Marcus. Marcus says he lives in Chicago and he wants to buy a gun and store it at a gun store that has lockers. Does he still need to register it and get the Chicago firearm permit? First of all, I didn't know of any gun store anywhere that has lockers, but okay, if you have one, you're still in the city of Chicago, you still have to comply with the ordinance. I mean, is that right, guys?
Well, if the gun never comes into Chicago, if it's purchased and maintained in a suburb, that does have a locker that can be maintained there for target practice, et cetera. That should.
Walter, now that's interesting. I didn't read it that way, and now that you say that, he didn't say purchase. There is no gun store in the city of Chicago, so he had to have purchased it outside the city.
I'm handling the case in federal court to challenge the statute that prohibits gun sales.
Okay,
it's been upheld, by the way.
So now that's an interesting question that he raises. So if you live in Chicago and you buy a firearm, say in Will County, okay, and they have some method of keeping it there, then you don't really have to register it, do you?
Precisely.
You do have to?
I believe that's what the ordinance says. If you're a resident, I think you still have to register it under the new ordinance that replaced the
well, then let me ask you this.
Well, there's at least a solid question about it, because if the gun isn't bought here, if it isn't maintained here, if the gun isn't purchased here, then it should be not subject to the ordinance.
Well, because, yes, and that was what I would think, because what if you have a cabin in Michigan?
Exactly.
What? Then you got to register a gun in Chicago because you keep a rifle in Michigan? That doesn't make sense.
Cook County is powerless to regulate conduct outside of Cook County.
Right. So I would assume. Now, Marcus, this is a lesson in jurisprudence. We have two attorneys and the president of the ISRA and a couple of guys who've been around this for much of their life, and we have no clue, actually. We're all just sort of looking at each other and going, well, I think so, you know. So, Marcus, if you're doing that, one of our attorneys would like to represent you when you get locked up, and then we'll see how it goes. That's fair, isn't it?
That's what we do.
We're trying to be helpful. I have a question, and I know the answer to this, but these are things that have been circulating since this whole Cook County thing came up. One of the things you saw a lot of, and my brother-in-law, the attorney, read my newsletter and immediately jumped down my throat. Can like a county or any governmental body legally tax a constitutional right?
Well, gun sales are taxed under sales tax.
Right.
There's a general rule that taxes are allowed under the revenue. But if the tax is designed to deter the conduct, then it's a penalty, and that is generally a no-no when it comes to constitutional rights.
Now, the interesting thing about the Cook County, is it a law ordinance? What is it?
It's an ordinance.
The interesting thing about the ordinance is it is not part of the sales tax.
Right, it's a suppressive levy in effect, and it's $25 per gun. So if you purchase a $50 gun, it's a 50% levy, and then beyond that, you're talking about a $1,000 fine for not paying the tax. So this is clearly designed to suppress a core fundamental right to own a firearm, and it's it really hasn't been challenged since Keller. To my knowledge, Keller and McDonald, but it seems as though this, if you were to take every book that's, under First Amendment or a newspaper and put this kind of a tax on it, which are core fundamental rights, you'd have a judge probably toss it out the window that day.
So it's not splitting hairs to say what this is not really a tax, it's something else, whatever. I mean, Don in the pre-show briefing talked about it's a poll tax. I mean, there's that sort of flavor to it.
It sounds like, it seems like, it smells like, it tastes like it's put in place to try and run the firearm dealers out of Cook County.
Precisely.
And it's also attached in this thing that we haven't touched on yet. This is also a de facto registration, and that the county's representatives could come into that shop at any time, and they can inspect your records right down to the 4473 that describes the firearm, describes the serial number of the firearm, who the person is that purchased it, where they live, and that's information that even the feds don't share unless there's an active criminal investigation going on.
You're listening to On Target Radio. This is AM 560 WIND, and we're talking this evening about the Cook County tax I use tax and I shouldn't, the Cook County fee that's been imposed per firearm purchase. And one of the questions that comes to mind for me is, okay, you can have a tax if that's what it is. If you're raising like the sales tax. But at some point with the firearm, did not the Supreme Court say it can't be so onerous that the average person can't afford it?
Right. As a matter of fact, the Seventh Circuit in Ezell talked about the fact that any regulation that you're going to have regarding a Second Amendment right, if it's a core right, has to, it can't be suppressive, it can't be overburdened or overwhelming. This is a move, in effect, that is in the nature of a penalty. It's like, you want to go and buy a firearm? We'll show you. Ante up and pay this hideously high, in terms of percentage of the value of the product, additional tax beyond your sales tax. There's some question, I think, even after Heller, whether or not a sales tax might or might not be constitutional. But this is clearly targeted, if you will, to deter people from purchasing guns and to make it more difficult. As a matter of fact, the penalty is on the buyer. Can you imagine, you go in and you don't pay the tax? It's not like other taxes where they come after you for the principal amount of the tax or maybe a small penalty or maybe an ongoing interest rate. Oh, no, it's $1,000 per violation. So for not paying $25, the next moment you are subject to a $1,000 fine.
And as we were talking about in the pre-show, the interesting thing about the ordinance is, number one, it specifically says that the dealer has to put it in the price of the firearm. From a pragmatic perspective, that's probably going to happen, but the where the rubber meets the road is that if the dealer says, I don't want to lose business to the collar counties, I'm going to absorb the cost myself. I'll pay the $25 out of my own bank account, and I'm still going to sell my gun for this amount. This ordinance says you can't do that. It literally has to reflect $25. And then the best part is it then goes on to say, if a dealer doesn't do that, you, the purchaser, are required to file a form and pay the $25.
Well, the entire philosophy, if you read the ordinance, is really designed to deter purchases and to deter sales. And that is the way in which this has been framed. It isn't just, we want our money. We want our money in such a way as we're going to not only fine you or penalize you if you don't pay, but we're going to not even allow the seller or anyone else to exercise economic freedom to contribute to your financial predicament. And in Chicago, by the way, there are a lot of very poor people who live in terrible circumstances who need to be protected. And you're talking here, if this isn't, at least in Chicago, isn't a suppressive penalty on the right of a Second Amendment law-abiding owner, I think it has racial implications, because it has, in terms of the percentage of the population, the people who in Chicago, in the neighborhoods that probably where you need it, are the ones who are probably the most vulnerable, are the ones who probably can't afford a gun. And if they can't afford it, they're going to have to now be subject to this above and beyond that. So it's clearly a unreasonable penalty, or at least a suppressive amount that I think also there's some due process implications here in terms of reasonableness, but I think it's going to be on the dumpster after.
Well, I agree. Last week in prepping on the air for this show, announcing it, I said that. I said I think it's racist, because if you live in I don't know, Lincoln Park, and you're making $250,000 a year, okay, it's $25, big deal. It's the price of doing business. But the people who need it most, the law-abiding people who live in places like Altgeld and those places where there's violence daily, they're the people who are least likely to be able to afford a firearm to begin with, and now you're making it harder. I think it's racist.
One of my clients, I carry, wanted to give away a gun to poor people who can't afford guns, who are subject to some of the highest crime rates in the city. And the city of Chicago has their ordinance, which they say my challenge has just been upheld in the federal court, which basically prohibits giving away guns. So you can't give it to someone in the city. Not only can't you sell it, and I'm representing some firearms dealers who are a firearms dealer who's challenging the ordinance, but this is sort of in that vein. It's just a constant mentality. Well, we didn't win, or Heller came down, and it was applied to the states under McDonald. But we're going to figure out some other means, method, artifice in order to squelch this right, and we're going to do it by hook or by crook. And by the way, also where this money's to be used may be very crooked.
Okay, we did get something on Facebook from Fred, and he said that he was at the Cook County meeting in Markham, and nobody asked the owner of Chuck's Gun Shop anything when he said that the state police and ATF regulate the sale of firearms. It's not a big surprise, I wouldn't think. They don't care. We're going to be right back after these few messages. You're listening to On Target Radio.
Chuck's Gun Shop proudly serves Riverdale and the surrounding communities. Conveniently located near the 142nd Street exit of the Bishop Ford Expressway, Chuck's Gun Shop is staffed by friendly, skilled professionals who will help guide a first-time shooter and assist you in obtaining a State of Illinois firearm owner's identification card. Chuck offers a full line of new handguns, rifles, shotguns, knives, and accessories. Chuck's also buys, sells, and trades used firearms and has a gunsmith on location that will provide expert care for your favorite firearm. Chuck's features a 6-lane indoor shooting range. Bring your own firearm or rent one from their wide assortment. If you live in Chicago, Chuck's Gun Shop offers the required Chicago Firearms Permit course. Chuck's Gun Shop is open Monday through Saturday and located at 14310 Indiana Avenue in Riverdale. Visit their website, chucksgunshop.net, or call 708-849-4455. That's 708-849-4455. Chuck's Gun Shop, serving Riverdale and surrounding communities.
I'm David Lombardo, president of Safer USA, Chicagoland's most popular firearm training school. We continue to offer our popular home protection and concealed carry seminar every month. This 8-hour seminar covers everything you need to know to safely and legally use a firearm for both concealed carry and home invasion, and qualifies you for Florida and Utah concealed carry permits good in about 30 states. Be sure to call and ask how we can help you raise funds for your organization or provide a guest speaker. We're also offering the NRA Basic Pistol Course and our Tactical Pistol 1 and 2. As always, I offer private one-on-one instruction for Basic Pistol, Chicago Firearm Certification, and Basic Home Defense. For further information, please call 877-954-3030 or go to saferusa.com. Safer USA, choosing to own a firearm is your business. Teaching to own it responsibly is ours.
That's 877-954-3030 or SAFERUSA.com.
We now return to On Target on AM 560 WIND. If you have a question or opinion, the studio line is 312-642-5600. Now, here's your host, firearm expert and educator, David Lombardo.
And we're back on Target Radio, and this is the magic moment you have all been waiting for. It's Tim's Tip of the Week, and I have no idea what it is. I'm so excited.
I know. I'm going to tell. It's all basically about you, and it's all bad.
Oh.
This is my Tip of the Week, sponsored by the Illinois State Rifle Association. Are you a new shooter taking your first trip to the local range? Besides your gun and ammo, what other items should you take along? New shooters are usually just so excited to go put some rounds down range that they get there only to find out they wish they would have brought some additional things with them. Here are a few items to consider. A range bag, sort of a gym bag sold at gun shops with multiple pockets to put lots of stuff in. Ear and eye protection goes without saying, should anyway. Targets, take plenty of targets. How many is plenty? Some people will only put 10 shots in a target. Some will put more. It's up to you. Both duct and masking tape. Trust me, you'll find plenty of uses for both of them. Target stand. Some ranges, inside or out, may require you to bring your own target stand. It's a good idea to contact the range ahead of time and ask. Cardboard. If you need a target stand, you probably need cardboard. Target stands usually hold anything up to about 28 inches square of cardboard to attach the target to. Some ranges supply cardboard, some don't. This is another question you should ask before you go. A razor blade knife to trim the cardboard or anything else when you're trying to put it in the target stand. Staples, guns, and staples to hold your target to the cardboard. Pencils, pens, maybe a notebook if you want to keep some type of notes on what you did during your shooting session. And a small bottle of gun oil, because nothing worse getting the range and having your gun jammed continually because you forgot to oil it after you clean it last. After you get to the range, take a look and see what other people have brought with them. You'll probably see other items you would like to bring next time. Take a few minutes setting yourself up for a good time before you go and make your first trip or two to your local range, and it'll make it that much more enjoyable. This has been your Tip of the Week, sponsored by the Illinois State Rifle Association.
Always pithy, Timothy. Always pithy. For over 100 years, the Illinois State Rifle Association has supported the rights and freedoms of Illinois citizens to keep and bear arms. For over 100 years, the ISRA has supported the use of firearms as a sport for personal protection and as a fundamental aspect of national defense. For over 100 years, the Illinois State Rifle Association has been supporting you. Don't you think it's time you supported them? ISRA.org or 815-635-3198. That's 815-635-3198. The Illinois State Rifle Association, supporting you. Happy, Don? Good. We have a caller, Jim from Winnebago. Jim, are you on?
Yes.
Say your piece real quick.
Yeah, I'm from Winnebago County. I'm on our county board here. Walter came and spoke to us on this concealed carry issue. We had some hearings. I really appreciated him being there. He shed a light on the subject. I can't understand this tax in Cook County at all. I mean, it is the most obscene tax that I could imagine there on any potential gun owner. They've singled out one product there to put this huge tax on without any input from the general public and so forth. I mean, were they going to tax next like a 25% tax on bowling balls, or it makes no sense at all to single out.
You'd have to be shooting a very large cannon. Jim, thanks for your comment, and we'll talk about it. Thank you very much for calling. Go ahead, Don. You're raising your hand.
Jim, if you think the tax is bad, let Walter tell you about what the penalties are if you don't pay this tax.
Well, it could be interpreted that it's not just $1,000 a day for failure to pay the $25, but it's every day that you're not in compliance. So theoretically, if they come after you 6 months later or whatever, add it up, it could be $1,000 per day plus the $25. And it could be, if you're 100 days, it may be $100,000. And second time around, the second offense is $2,000. So you're talking here about, theoretically, if by the time the government comes after you, once they find out about you not paying your $25, you could wind up with hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax exposure from a violation of this ordinance. And I mean, I think it's designed that way. I think it's designed to be onerous and to be suppressive and to, target the law-abiding citizen from being able to defend himself.
Here's the interesting question. That money, Preckwinkle says, is going to go into a fund to be given to organizations with a demonstrated history of reducing violence in the community.
That'd be any concealed carry organization, right?
That's an interesting question. Let me think. No. So, but is that even legal?
The operative word is given. First of all, there's old Illinois law, and it's so well established that it's not even an issue. That government, it's not the government's money nor the individual governmental officials' money. They cannot give public funds raised by taxes or otherwise, or any public property, to private organizations. They can buy services, they can let out bids for buying property, etc., but they can't give money away. And so it seems, even though it's not stated in the ordinance, that the objective here is to take money from law-abiding gun owners and to give it to organizations that want to further oppose that right. And it's a political underpinning that's designed to transfer this money and to allow it to be her personal piggy bank. So I suggest, and if she does that, and now knowing that that is a violation of law to give away public property as a public official, she could probably have personal or criminal liability to do so.
Okay, and we will be back. No, we won't be back. That's George just playing our music for us. That's good. We like our music. That's fine. So we get to talk with some music in the background. When we do come back, we are going to talk about whether or not the Supreme Court can reverse this whole thing if it changes over. So we'll be right back.
For 35 years, Pelcher's Shooter's Supply has served the Lansing area. Pelcher's offers new and used firearms sales, appraisals, and gunsmithing service. Pelcher's new spacious showroom has hundreds of major brand firearms and supplies, and PelcherGuns.com features daily specials. Pelcher's Shooter's Supply, on the corner of Ridge Road and Henry Street in downtown Lansing. Online at PelcherGuns.com or call 708-474-0662.
You're listening to On Target Radio on AM 560 WIND with David Lombardo. Here's David with more interesting conversation on firearms, safety, your Second Amendment rights, and much more. To participate, call the studio at 312-642-5600.
Okay, we're back with On Target Radio. For those of you who are watching us on television,
you're not.
You're not. Yes, it's not that the room has been blacked out for air raids. We're having feed problems.
It looks like the website that we feed through is down. I've logged in and out and rebooted and everything else. I can't get into it.
The truth is Tim looked right in the lens, and that sucker cracked.
Broke.
It did.
I have to ask, how many shows have you had where the videos actually worked?
Oh, actually,
the video always works.
The video works.
It's just the audio attached to it doesn't.
That's where we had trouble.
But we fixed it last week. We figured out. Well, we had Frank from the Pinker Show figured it out for us. We're all set with audio, and then the website goes down.
Yeah, it's perfect.
I just wondered, because both times I've been on, neither time did it work, and I just thought maybe it was
directly related to you, Don.
The reflection off my skull, or
directly related to you. A question that I have is, I say this frequently: elections have consequences. So come Tuesday, if our incumbent president remains president, we're pretty sure that there's going to be some openings on the Supreme Court, and in point of fact, we really only need one. And that turns the balance of the Supreme Court. So the question becomes, could the Supreme Court, a new Supreme Court, could it reverse the decisions, Heller and McDonald? And can you explain the theory of stare decisis? I mean, historically, they have not trampled previous decisions because once you open the door, then when the next court comes along, then they start messing with your stuff, right?
Right. Stare decisis is a principle that tries to ensure stability, consistency, and respect for prior well-thought-out decisions. And the Supreme Court usually, regardless of political affiliation and even changes in the wind, generally tries to adhere to that principle for purposes of consistency so the public can rely on the prior decisions of the court. But even though that is an operative philosophy that is often respected by most judges of the court who are committed to upholding the rule of law and that principle, there is absolutely nothing that prevents the court from voting independently and freshly on any time the issue is brought up, even the old issue. So theoretically, because this decision in Heller was by, I believe, one vote, and McDonald. There was, the court was again divided. Theoretically, I think perhaps at least two in the next term, two justices will probably retire. Other things could happen. You are looking at the possibility of another vote on another issue that approaches the court in some other way that could clearly reverse everything. So, yes, it can be done. Would a fair-minded jurist committed to the rule of law and these judicial principles do it? Supposedly not, but I wouldn't bet the rent.
Yeah. Well, and that's my concern.
The problem is that they could do an end run around the Second Amendment and not overrule Heller or McDonald, but they could say that it's constitutional to ban firearms based on capacity. And they say if that gun has capacity to shoot more than 10 rounds, it's an assault weapon, and then you could ban it. And then if you get a decision like that, then they'll pass a law saying you can't have a gun that shoots more than 5 rounds. You can't have a gun that shoots more than 1 bullet.
Just keep whittling at it.
Yes. So they could totally emasculate the Second Amendment by doing an end run. And it only takes one justice to do that. One of the dissenting justices, and Heller has been quoted as saying that's what they're hoping for, is to get one more justice to reverse Heller or do an end run and come up with a way to get around the Heller and McDonald decisions.
And by the way, it's true that the Supreme Court could do that, but that's why these elections do matter, because theoretically, if something like that happens, the Congress could pass laws that may override their decision depending on the issue.
You're listening to On Target Radio, AM 560 WIND. We're talking about the Cook County gun tax that's been put on sales of firearms. This is getting a little further away from this, but it's another question that is on a lot of people's minds. And that is if the current president is reelected and if the UN resurrects the Small Arms Treaty, which kind of got put on the back burner there for a bit. But if they resurrect it and he signs it, what is that implication really for the United States?
Not a lot, because the treaty is not in effect unless it's passed by 2/3 of the Senate. And the president doesn't have 2/3 of the Senate. Second of all, there's U.S. constitutional opinion that even if the treaty is passed, if you need enabling legislation passed by Congress and signed by the president to have that treaty affect the citizens of the United States. And the current president, doesn't have the House, and it'll never pass. So you have those two hurdles to go over, even if the president signs that treaty in his next term or in a lame duck session.
And then you have another interesting issue as to whether or not, because you're dealing with a core fundamental right, suppose that there was a treaty with the First Amendment, you cannot suppress the inherent fundamental core rights of American citizens through, even though it's a high law of the land, the treaty is a high law of the land and is adopted, you cannot subvert and undermine these core principles, like you can't outlaw free speech.
You don't need ratification of the states, though?
No,
not for treaty.
Not for treaty.
Not for treaty, okay.
Yeah.
But you do have to have both the House and the Senate.
Well, you have to have 2/3 of the Senate to ratify.
It's just the Senate for treaty.
The Senate,
right.
Okay. So the likelihood, even if they gain control of the House and they have the House and the Senate, you still aren't going to there aren't 2/3 votes in there, are there?
No.
So I think this is a canard. This keeps being resurrected, and I honestly think it's the anti-gun people that keep resurrecting it because it keeps everybody focused on threat that I don't think exists.
Well, it could diminish the amount of guns being sold into the United States.
Exactly.
Well, don't fall asleep. Go out and vote.
Well, and exactly. That's the bottom line. We'll be back in just a few minutes, and we're getting towards the end of the thing, but we've got a little more to talk about. More On Target Radio coming up.
Chuck's Gun Shop proudly serves Riverdale and the surrounding communities. Conveniently located near the 142nd Street exit of the Bishop Ford Expressway, Chuck's Gun Shop is staffed by friendly, skilled professionals who will help guide a first-time shooter and assist you in obtaining a State of Illinois firearm owner's identification card. Chuck offers a full line of new handguns, rifles, shotguns, knives, and accessories. Chuck's also buys, sells, and trades used firearms and has a gunsmith on location that will provide expert care for your favorite firearm. Chuck's features a 6-lane indoor shooting range. Bring your own firearm or rent one from their wide assortment. If you live in Chicago, Chuck's Gun Shop offers the required Chicago Firearms Permit course. Chuck's Gun Shop is open Monday through Saturday and located at 14310 Indiana Avenue in Riverdale. Visit their website, chucksgunshop.net, or call 708-849-4455. That's 708-849-4455. Chuck's Gun Shop, serving Riverdale and surrounding communities.
You're listening to On Target on AM 560 WIND with David Lombardo. Here's David with more interesting conversation on firearms, safety, your Second Amendment rights, and much more. To participate, call the studio at 312-642-5600.
And we're back in our final segment. This is On Target Radio. And my guests are Don Moran, Ed Ronkowski, and Walter Maksym. When does the Cook County tax, or whatever we want to call it?
April Fool's Day, 2013.
Oh, how appropriate is that?
Before that date, you could buy your guns, and you're not subject to the tax, and the government's not going to have your paperwork. This might be the biggest fire sale you've ever seen on guns.
Well, and, you know, I don't want to hawk anybody in particular, but Illinois Gun Works and Chuck's Gun Shop and Pelcher's Shooting Supply are available to sell firearms and have large inventories even as we speak. So now's the time to go do it. Plus, did you mention about registering? It wouldn't be...
Yeah, there'd be no paperwork on
There'd be
file.
no paperwork.
April 1st, the new law takes effect.
Exactly. So now's the time to go out and buy. What can I say? We do have a comment or question from Fred. From Noel. And the question was, what was the purpose of this tax? He's confused. Was it to raise money to offset the cost of uninsured victims or to give it to organizations that lower crime?
Neither.
And that's exactly
the purpose of this ordinance is to drive the gun shops out of business and move them out of Cook County. That weakens our base that we can oppose these sorts of things with, and it strengthens their arguments. So,
and the thing that points that out is they are very specific that the purchaser has to be aware of the fact they're getting the shaft. You right. Actually are responsible yourself for paying that $25. And if the gun shop doesn't put it in the price where you can see it, then you have to pay for it yourself.
And if you don't pay it, you're subject to a $1,000 a day penalty
until somebody figures it out.
Right.
So it's very, very clear what they are trying to do is run the gun shops in Cook County out of business. It's just that simple.
And the artifice is that what the argument is that they're going to tax the law-abiding gun owner, take money from them in order to pay for or supplement or defer the costs of injuries to people who have been shot by criminals or have some injury, evidently from some encounter with a gun. And if you think about this logically, it's illogical and really unfair to take individuals and tax them and take their money away to pay for something that they didn't do that a criminal is in effect responsible for.
And that sums it up. This is all what I have seen since the Supreme Court decisions, are ways that Cook County and the city of Chicago are trying to find ways to nullify those decisions. They, both mayors have said, oh, well, we support it, we understand, that's fine. And they start looking for backdoor ways to chip away at your ability to go out and own a firearm.
And, David, that's why we hosted the legal symposium last year at John Marshall Law School to try and connect Section 1983 civil rights attorneys with Second Amendment attorneys. And we'll be hosting another one of those. And under those statutes, people can go back and hold the public officials personally liable.
Will Tim and I be invited again?
Absolutely.
We went last year.
And
it was very good. It was a good
note for the attorneys listening, you get CLE credits for attending that.
That's correct.
Okay. Well, that's you're about to say something, Tim.
I was just going to say that wraps up another great show.
There you go.
Exactly.
Yeah. One day you're going to graduate and come on this side. I'd like to thank our guests.
I'm
Don
sure
Moran,
we have many people that would like that already.
Ed Ronkowski and Walter Maksym. I don't think anybody does. Thanks to our good friend Jeff Pincus and his show Living Large on Sunday from 7 to 9. Thanks to Vicki Cohen, our call screener, and George Hoffman on the board, despite blasting music into my ear and making me deaf. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Illinois Gun Works, Chuck's Gun Shop, Pelcher's Shooter Supply, Illinois State Rifle Association, our website diviner, 31 Moons, and Safer USA. Next week, a very special honoring our veterans. Carl Laturi, a World War II vet, Bob Barcelona, Korea, I'm Vietnam, Tim is First Gulf, and Mark Brownlow is Second Gulf War. They are all going to be here in this room talking about being in a war.
Don Moran for Will County Board.
There you go,
Don't forget
Don
to
Moran.
vote Tuesday.
All right, please vote Tuesday for someone who really is proud to be an American.
Good night, all.
On Target Radio next week.